Redditors who massively fed up at work. What happened? I dropped a screw inside the engine of a TGV train. Oh god. We spent half an hour trying to catch it by moving a magnetic stick inside the crankshaft, with oil spilling everywhere. The engine was new and about to be mounted on a train that was supposed to run later in the day. I was so terrified I would possibly cause quite a lot of trouble since no other train or engine was available. Shout out to my manager who finally got that screw and definitely deserved his half a dozen of croissants the next morning. Controls engineer made a copy paste error while programming and a 2 was a 3. So one machine tagged at 3 was waiting for conditions of 2. So naturally the lift moved when it thought it should and crashed into another machine. Course I'm having to stand there figuring out the issue while maintenance is up there replacing busted parts. But because I've made 1,000 changes it didn't click fast enough and well, it happened again. Program doing exactly what you told it to do, the bane of all software engineers. Working the stockroom at Malwart, grabbed a Pepsi pallet with a forklift and didn't realize it was a short pallet. The forks came out the other side and through to the pallet of glass Coke bottles it was up against. When I lifted the Pepsi, the Coke came up with it and dumped the entire unwrapped pallet of glass bottles, spilling all that sticky soda on the floor. That mess was hell to clean up. However, the vendor had to eat the cost because that store's posted policy is that they cannot leave unwrapped pallets unless it is being worked. During the first week of my first job in animation after I graduated, I had to move a bunch of scene files from one server to another. The files were heavy, so I was told to just cut and paste them to make it faster. I accidentally put them in a wrong area and without thinking just deleted them. Went back to move the files again, they weren't there. I had forgotten I hadn't copied them. I lost 5 minutes of full animation. My longtime friend who recommended me for the job got inched because his backups didn't catch the files, and my direct supervisor worked for 21 days straight to help redo all the animation. The studio and everyone involved were way nicer to me about it than I expected. I kept my job and I bragged in donuts for the whole crew for a week after, but it was an awful start. Accidentally left out the move next method on a loop that sent out an email broadcast, which meant it mail bombed the first recipient in the loop until we realized what was happening and killed the process. The CEO's email was the first email address in the loop. He was an asshole anyway, and was absolutely incoherent with rage when his Outlook crashed when downloading 15,000 emails inviting him to take a satisfaction survey. Good thing it was only a test. One of the managers where I work had the junior guy add a vacation autoresponder to his email, and the confirmation window had a checkbox apply to inbox. The manager never cleans his inbox and the guy decided to check that box. Something like 10,000 emails were sent that day. Important clients, who he would have been conversing more often with, were getting multiple hundreds of vacation notifications. Nothing bad came from it and most of the clients were good-hearted about it. He was getting replies like, "Frank, please stop, we know you're on vacation." Slammed a forklift into a Camaro. Oh damn, that is not good for the resale value of the forklift. A very important and very big customer placed an order for some chemical bulk to be delivered early Jan. Our contract with them stated that every day we were late we would be fined millions. The bulk plant finished on time and just needed the drums to pour the bulk into. Warehouse come up to my office. I was the purchaser responsible for buying the drums. Where are the 250-liter drums? Bulk plant need them. It's fine, I thought. I placed the order before Christmas. I remember doing it. Looks at SAP, why is the supplier late? They're never late. Checks my order, mouth goes instantly dry and I start to sweat. I had placed the order, but I forgot that for this particular supplier I needed to email them the PO. We had just changed the system to allow SAP to auto email the supplier after we placed an order, but not for this one supplier. I knew this, but must have forgotten. These drums had a 2-week lead time from the supplier, so I knew I was dead. Not only would we have had millions of pounds of fines, but the production plant would have been put on hold, having to store tons of bulk with nowhere to put it. I went and told my boss and just told him I had funked up. Being an awesome guy and boss, he thanked me for being honest and told me it's going to be okay. He called the supplier, sweet talked them, and because we were a good customer they allowed us to take another customer's order. The drums were delivered next day. That was about 9 years ago and I still think about it. The lesson here, especially for younger people or those who recently entered the workforce, is own up to your mistakes right away. panicking, freaking out, and trying to hide the problem from your manager. Hoping time will make things better almost always makes things worse. You will make mistakes in your work. Be calm, own up right away, and it'll be okay. Follow up. This reply has gotten popular, so adding another related thought. When something's gone wrong and you need to tell someone about it, it's always best to do this in person, face to face, if at all possible. A lot can be misconstrued and lost in translation via email, Slack, even the phone. It's embarrassing and scary in the moment, but it'll save you and your manager a lot of frustration and prove to them that you really care and are willing to face and confront tough situations. This is a good quality in any employee, considering we're in a pandemic. This is tricky. I recently made a pretty big mistake with a client leading to a significant amount of data loss. All good now though. At the time, I had no idea how to solve this problem or really even why it happened, but I knew I needed to tell them right away. I slacked the manager and said, can you hop on a Zoom really quickly? It's time sensitive. 2 minutes later we're talking face to face about the issue and everyone's looped in. My first day working at a coffee shop, I left my Sharpie in the oven. Finally found it while trying to warm a sandwich and had to shut the whole thing down to be cleaned. It smelled like a chemical weapon. I worked in a pizza place and they caught me eating olives on camera. It wasn't 2-3 olives. I could eat like 1,000 in a shift. I really don't know why, and it's a time in my life I want to forget. Was promoted to terminal manager and I was a dumb 25-year-old idealist. We had an essential employee, a mechanic who kept our fleet of trucks running. At least that was his job description. Less than a month on the job, it came to my attention that he was a working alcoholic and his work on our fleet was underwhelming. My boss told me to fire him once we had a new mechanic ready to come in. I told the old mechanic that he should probably start looking for new work if he couldn't do the job. Word got back to him through the pipeline that he was going to be fired. I went to a bar with my assistant manager after working 40 days straight and lo and behold the mechanic showed up. Long story short, the mechanic attempted to abduct me with his adult son and dump my body in a frozen lake. The whole thing became a large dramatic bullshit event that put me in the hospital for a few hours and we both lost our jobs. I was new to SQL and accidentally mailed a list of people with deceased date is not null instead of is null. So an entire marketing campaign was sent to dead people. That eventually led to our marketing tools being hard-coded not to mail dead people. Which makes sense, but I was terrified when I found out. Mixed bleach and ammonia. Had to evacuate the restaurant. The food here will knock you out of this world. I was a nanny. A little 2-year-old I was watching fell down and hit the back of her head on the concrete. I rushed over to her but she didn't move or blink. Just laid on her back motionless. I tried to check for breathing and pulse and pretty much blanked on everything I'd ever learned in CPR first aid training in my panic. She seriously looked dead. I screamed for help. The neighbors came running. I told them to call an ambulance. The police, fire department, ambulance showed up within minutes. She was rushed to the hospital and a million tests were run. Turns out she barely even had a bruise. No concussion. No seizure. No injury. Nothing. The doctor said she probably just got scared and froze for just long enough for me to lose my Her parents were charged $5,000 to tell them their child got surprised. Dude, as parent, I would rather pay the $5,000 to make sure my kid was alright. You did the right thing. The chef was angry that day. I was advised by my co-workers to do whatever it takes to get on his good side. I thought, I'll just try to avoid him. He was standing in the cooler taking inventory. Beside him were the 5-gallon containers of prepped food. I sneaked in and tried to quickly grab the ranch container, but in my haste, I nudged another. It was the French onion soup. All 5 gallons of it, on his pants and shoes. Yes, he was upset. The prep girl was upset. I had 10 minutes till lunch service started. I have no idea how I'm still alive. I was a bartender. I knocked down the entire top shelf. Thousands of dollars in liquor. Eater, I didn't get in trouble. The boss just built a stronger shelf. He found it hilarious that the only thing I saved was a $6 bottle of sloe gin that happened to be on the wrong shelf. If it all came down, I guess you could blame it on someone else. Probably whoever chose the fixtures and fittings. Unless you were the one that chose them, then you've only got your shelf to blame. I work as an apprentice in an IT printer repair office. We had a tech apprentice last year who finished his education and sent out an email to everyone, around 20 people including management, saying that it was his last day and thank you to everyone. We got along pretty well. We're around the same age and we both hated our jobs and how we were treated, so I replied with that "God, I wish that were me" deviant comment meme. Realized an hour later I hit reply to all instead of reply and sent it out to the entire office. Almost sh my pants. Luckily no one brought it up except 1-2 co-workers I'm on good terms with who found it funny, but God, I wanted to die. Accepted 20 fake $100 bills because I hadn't been taught how to spot fakes. I mean, that's kind of the store's fault for not properly training you, to be honest. I worked in a nice steakhouse. First week, I accidentally put salt in the sugar bowls and sugar in the salt shakers. Customers started to complain about their sweet steaks and salty coffees. We had to pull all the salt and sugar from each table. My last day as a waiter, I can really relate to this. While in high school I had a job at night working at an decent restaurant and accidentally mixed up ranch with blue cheese from the big jugs the dressings came in. I just added it to the salad bar with a tag out that said blue ranch so as not to waste it, and the customers actually used it all up within a few days. I felt bad for screwing up, but there were no repercussions for my mistake. Very first tech job as a youngin, and I forgot to verify if someone had backed up files before a clean OS install. Lost the guy's Outlook archive files with 10 years worth of conveniently stored and important email. Apologized and sheepishly turned the issue over to admins, pushing the problem off to someone else. I'm a habitual user of this tactic myself. Not me, but my dad. He used to be a microbiologist and was working in a hospital with a tray of test tubes containing some kind of pseudo-rabies. He went arse over tit and spilt rabies everywhere. He's an accountant now. No use crying over spilt rabies. A customer got the best of me. I worked upper level customer service for an Australian winery conglomerate that shall remain unnamed. They owned a bunch of exclusive brands, but only had a team of 6 or 7 customer service reps to service them all. 2 of us got paid $1 per hour more to be upper level customer service and take escalations, which is fancy talk for get shone by the wealthy. A customer from their top brand made an online purchase, which we shipped immediately. He decided he was upset about that, as we should have read his mind and known he wanted it 3 months later. Anyway, he called me an idiot, so I cancelled his order, his wine club membership, and deleted his customer profile. I was not let go due to them literally needing me to keep the department running, but my manager burst a blood vessel in his eye. Concessions at a movie theater. I was making popcorn, but I had learned that if we used a bit more seasoning and oil, the popcorn tasted insanely better. What I didn't know was the popcorn machine had broken earlier and wasn't stirring the popcorn anymore. So after I had made a new batch and no popcorn coming out, I decided to check on the machine, and a hot glob of oil flew into my eye. Started cussing and screaming in front of a whole bunch of customers and got rushed into the back to wash my eye out. Not me, but I worked at a place that made wiring harnesses. Dude's 4th-ish day he's running the wire cutting machine. Suddenly says he's sick and leaves. Never came back. He absolutely messed up everything on the cut. What's sad is he wouldn't have been fired or even been in trouble. He didn't have to leave. My first day as a dishwasher at a resort. I dropped a tray stacked with executive china. Chemistry teacher here. On my first day of teaching I set my classroom on fire after some unfortunate incidents involving sodium, water and a glass tank. The problem was that the glass tank was too big, so the hydrogen gas got to build up to a decent amount. Then suddenly kaboom, the glass tank exploded. There was shattered glass everywhere and hit the students, who were all wearing safety glasses. A column of water grew from the glass tank to the ceiling and the ceiling started to burn. After a few moments the fire died out and the fire alarm was loud, and I had to make sure all of the students were okay, which they were. It ended up being one of my funniest classes to teach for many years. The students absolutely loved it. I was a bit of a nervous wreck for a few hours. The worst thing in hindsight is all of the comments saying things like "you started your career with a bang" and stuff like that.